Hello everyone, the Conceptual IS welcomes you all in this discussion of Sociology optional for UPSC mains. And today's topic is alienation. So before we proceed, we have to observe some of the questions asked by UPSC previously. For example, identify the similarities and differences between Marx's theory of alienation and Durkheim's theory of ennui. So what is this alienation per se? And what is this concept in detail? We have to understand this concept of alienation and various aspects associated to alienation. So when we say alienation, we have to watch some more questions. For example, UPSC asked one more question in 2020, critically assess the Marxian theory of alienation. So alienation per se is sense of detachment, or you can say isolation. Detachment or isolation from what? There are various aspects of human life. For example, you create something that is a product. So if you have been alienated from sense of belongingness of that product, it is alienation from the product. You can have relationship during your work life, your collaboration with other fellow, but since division of labor is promoted by various organizations, companies and production purposes, and this division of labor led to departmentalization of the task or subtask associated in a production process, and therefore there is very less or least scope of communication between the fellow workers. Therefore the worker become detached from other fellow worker, and if there are certain areas, spaces, whether fellow worker are present, there is also problem of what kind? The relationship between the fellow workers are competitive in nature. To seek the reward, one fellow worker criticize the other fellow worker in the backside, especially with the bosses or superiors. This is the basic nature of the capitalism as identified by the Marx. Marx says this entire process is leading to weakening of the emotions between fellow workers, and therefore fellow workers feel separated or detached from each other. They lack their personal bonding. Their collaboration is limited up to the purpose of increasing the production and reducing the cost, so increasing the profit for entrepreneur or capitalist, what Marx says. So in this way the fellow workers get detached from each other. So such detachment is promoting alienation from the fellow worker. Similarly, after departmentalization, mechanization and promotion of technology, the production is being scaled to a different level. Workers are reduced to certain repetitive nature of work, and they lack understanding about the entire production process. Therefore, workers are supposed to lack the confidence what he or she is producing, how he or she is producing. Since worker is feeling separated from the entire production process, there is one bit of work which have been repeated for many times, and this is leading the tendency of lacking or believing or lack of belief that worker has any understanding with that process. Therefore, worker does not understand how entire production process functions, and thus entire process is detached from the understanding of the worker, and worker becomes isolated or detached from that process. Therefore, Marx says this is alienation from the process. And because of the repetitive nature of this work, because of the repetitive nature of the work, we will discuss in detail. Repetitive nature of work, worker lacks creativity. Since worker lacks creativity, worker lacks innovation. Why? Because to have creativity and innovation, the end product must be in front, and entire production process must be visualized by the worker. But after departmentalization, breaking the work into sub-components, sub-parts, worker is attached to only a very small segment of the task, which is repetitive in nature. Therefore, worker is supposed to behave like a tool in a big machine, and he or she lacks their understanding how to innovate, how to create newer things, because he or she is not supposed to think like that. When worker lacks innovation and the capacity of creativity, he lacks the self morale to attach any process of the production, any product, or even from himself or herself. So this is described by Marx as alienation from the self. So this is described by Marx as an alienation from the self, detachment from oneself. Fine. So Marx concept of alienation was a groundbreaking concept, and especially invited reforms in the production process and industrialist economy, and especially these phenomena were very dominating, especially 1870 or 75, and especially between first war and between 1870 to 75. So in between those 40-50 years, those were the era of conflict between workers' interest and the interest of industrialist or capitalist. And basically the theories of Marx, understanding of the Marx, writing of the Marx led to enlightenment among workers. They demanded for their rights. That led to creation of International Labour Organization in some date later. But the groundwork and the thesis work was created by Marx himself and some other followers of the Marx are new Marxists. So Marx identified 4 types of alienation. So first we need to understand what is alienation. Our concept is alienation. What is alienation? So Marx identifies how much, what type of alienation. There are 4 types of alienation. 4 types. 4 types. The first one is alienation from the product. Alienation from the product. Okay. The next one, alienation from the process. Alienation from the process. Okay. And the third one, alienation from the fellow workers. Fellow workers. And the fourth one is alienation from the self. These are 4 types through which Marx defines the concept of alienation in great detail. So one after one, now we will understand what is alienation. as we described earlier that one is alienation from the product of the labor. So, what labor has created? Product. First one is alienation from the product of labor. Fine. Alienation from the product of the labor. So, what labor produces? Labor is separated from that product, and this is alienation from the product. What factors leading to such situation? Because the production process is not controlled by few laborers, it is been departmentalized, and since the factors we can say division of labor, profit maximization, by capitalists. These are the background under which alienation occurs, and this lead to loss of control and satisfaction among laborers. So, what are outcomes? Loss of control, loss of satisfaction. So, this is basically outcome of alienation from the product. And in this process, normally what product is being produced, since prices are determined by the capitalist himself or herself. Product is too costly to be afforded by the labor. So, other factors are cost. The product is too costly to be afforded by labor, therefore, labor has no attachment or no understanding of attachment. Can you say that if you are working in some company, let's say Parle-G, there are biscuits available in the retail store. Can you say if you are working in Parle-G that this product is created by you? The answer is no. Why? Because you are associated to only a small wing or micro component of the total production process of the biscuit. That's why you do not feel the attachment with that product. In other way, if you are producing something from the stage of initial to the final product, even if you are part of some team where many number of workers are associated, but if you are observing entire production process, you are part of that process as a team. Let's say ISRO scientist, when any mission of the ISRO is being launched, not only ISRO chief but other workers have understanding that our effort is being attached to the success of. Therefore, the outcome is not detached from the worker. Means worker has sense of attachment, or workers have understanding about the final product in case of ISRO, but not in case of Parle-G, because ISRO does not have motive to maximize the profit, and it does not departmentalized, though there are departments, but there are not strict hierarchy and strict departmental, especially among the scientific. But Similar thing is not available in other production process where capitalists have the motive to maximize the profit. Therefore, the alienation from the product is leading to many sociological context, and this is leading to commoditification of labor. Here labor means what? A manual labor providing means effort, the contribution of the labor, this labor. Fine. So this is leading to commoditification, means your effort are paid. Therefore, you should not have any sense of attachment with any outcome or any product. So this is classic understanding of Karl Marx about alienation of the product. Since you understand alienation of the product, there will be other concept of the there will be other concept, for example, alienation from the process. But the alienation from the process is not completely separated as per the factors, as per the outcome, because factors and outcomes are approximate similar in case of alienation from the process. Alienation from the process. So second is alienation from. Fine. Alienation from the process. So as we discussed earlier, the production process is being departmentalized. So factors are approximate: division of work, departmentalization, motive of huge profit is basically the factors behind alienation from the process, and the repetitive monotonous nature is the outcome. Here factor is division of labor, outcome repetitive monotonous nature of. So labor get detached from the understanding of the entire production process, and thus labor feels alienated from the process. And alienation from the fellow worker, or we can say that alienation from the society, because for a labor, society is what? Society is their fellow workers. Their fellow workers are somebody with whom labor will create a society or social cohesion or social conversation. But you can observe even in today's production process where labor have competitive nature of relation. They are engaged in petty politics, organizational politics, to undermine the effort of their fellow workers. How will they create a cohesive culture? Since they have relation competitive. Why this is happening? Because there are reward attached to these habits. Why capitalist is promoting organizational politics in their work culture? Because capitalist is not interested in any form of cooperation between the labor outside the factory. Reason? Inside the factory, production process is a cooperative function. Therefore, cooperation must be among the worker for the production purpose, and for that capitalist creates hierarchy. In hierarchy, the labor associated to below order is supposed to obey the bosses. And in case of society, they have competitive. Boss have fear to lose the position, and the lower rank labors at lower ranks supposed to have dissatisfaction, critical understanding about the fellow workers as well as the bosses with the bosses. Therefore, they are failed to create a society. Therefore, they are failed to create collaboration outside the factory with fellow members. Thus, this is leading to alienation from the society or fellow workers. Fine. And the fourth one, alienation from this. From the self. What is this self? So, factor will remain same. Why factor will remain same? Repetitive nature. Here repetitive nature becomes factor. Repetitive nature and monotonous, this one. This becomes factor. Factor. And therefore, labor has no scope of creativity and innovation. So, what is outcome? Outcome is, for point number 4, outcome is lack of ability to create or innovate. When labor lacks their skills of creativity and innovation, labor lose its potential, self-confidence, lose potential, self-confidence, that's why you might have observed that employees of large companies, and especially white collar employees, well paid employees, generally lose their capacity to become entrepreneur. And generally, the newer entrepreneur comes from the ground. You think Elon Musk might be working in somewhere like Microsoft? No. He was the grounded man, the new entrepreneur. New entrepreneurs, why? Because the one who is working in large or mega companies, multinationals, lose their ability to create or innovate. That's why he or she lacks his capacity to create a new company, to create any startup, to become entrepreneur. So he remain a labor only. His promotion is only up to the level of employee and not the boss, entrepreneur. But the new entrepreneurs who comes from the ground like Elon Musk, gain those tendencies, understand very well the importance of division of labor, the departmentalization, the repetitive and monotonous nature of the work, because these are the instrument of exploit the potential of the labor and suppress the confidence among the labor to think beyond the operation, to think beyond the existing production process. So this is basically concept of alienation. Fine. So for more detail, if you want to understand alienation in detail, what are the criticism of alienation, what are the other aspect, what Durkheim says about alienation, what Weber think about alienation. You should join sociology classes of the conceptual. We have regular batches in Hindi and English medium separately. So if you want to join sociology classes, there is a Telegram link below. With the help of link, you can communicate with us and join sociology optional, the best one. Best optional is sociology optional. Why? Because every fifth candidate in UPSC or Labashna comes from